Welcome to Father and Son. Welcome, Tom.
What do you got?
The Big Bash is on tonight, and they've pre-sold over 70,000 seats at the MCG, which is just phenomenal. And given there'll be some, walk-in people, I think they could get over 80,000. Now, Channel 9 have made a huge mistake, because what Channel 9 did, they do all the cricket, as we know, and they televised the one in Sydney 2 nights ago, and they televised the one tonight. But the Big Bash competition that went on around Australia has had fantastic audiences. Cricket Australia got nothing out of it, and Foxtel have locked it up for the next year as well. So everybody's losing a lot of money, and Foxtel's having a good laugh over it all. It's been getting fantastic ratings on Foxtel, and it'll be big ratings on Channel 9 tonight for this second game against India.
Well, Nine has made that mistake before, of course. Several years ago, it allowed the Ashes series, the one that Australia famously lost in England, to be televised by SBS, and it was a huge ratings winner for SBS. And Nine just said, "Oh no, we don't want it." Anyway.
Yeah. Well, they get a bit confused, some of these television channels at times.
The rumour is that when Nine was bidding for the AFL rights years ago, and Kerry Packer was still alive, he was away and could not understand how they had allowed, I think it was Channel 10, to have the grand final. Like, they just, why on earth would you do that? That's the biggest day on Australian television. Yeah. Anyway, people perhaps up in Sydney don't quite understand.
They don't understand AFL football.
No.
And then the one-day series starts on Sunday, again at the MCG, so it's all happening in cricket. Now, what about Gina Rinehart? She's having a lovely squabble with 3 of her 4 kids. And now she's got 13-14% of Fairfax. What's she up to?
Well, it's interesting. Gina Rinehart owns 10% of the 10 network, and she has a board seat. 10 has got quite a number of big hitters around the table. James Packer owns a chunk of it. Lachlan Murdoch, of course, is chairman of it. And Gina Rinehart, she already had 4% of Fairfax. Fairfax publishes the Age, the Sydney Morning Herald, and the Financial Review. And of course is the owner of a chain of radio stations, one of which in Melbourne is 3OW, on which we appear. Yeah. She made a share raid the other night. The stock was at 74 cents. Her brokers went into the market at 81.8 cents. Not quite sure why they picked that particular figure. And has netted, it looks like, between 13 and 14% of the company. Now, as yet, her camp is not saying anything. The fear is, of course, that she will want to, gain influence with politicians. For example, at Channel 10, it's rumoured that she was responsible for the airing of the Bolt Report, which is Andrew Bolt's program on Sundays. And that's seen as fairly right-wing, as is Gina Rinehart.
Is that rating very well, Bolt
Report? Actually, no. So it's not like it has an enormous influence on things. But, I mean, to be honest, the days of proprietors being able to influence editorial comment, I would have thought well in the past.
I don't think so. Well, Rupert Murdoch still does it. You can always tell he does it. Kerry Packer used to do it.
I think Murdoch just employs like-minded individuals. Anyway, we'll see. I mean, look, I work some of my time at Fairfax, and I tell you what, plenty of people...
Who's the chairman of Fairfax now?
I've forgotten, to be honest. It was Ron Walker, but he's gone. The Fairfax family, by the way, don't own any Fairfax shares anymore. They've sold out. But look, I mean, plenty of people have tried to fix Fairfax up, and Gina Rinehart is welcome to have a go, and good luck to her, I say, because there's plenty of things there that need fixing.
Well, the problem with the Age is it used to be about that thick on a Saturday morning, and now all that advertising's gone to the internet. So
and Fairfax could have owned that. They could have bought the companies back in their infancy that now dominate internet advertising in Australia. They didn't do it.
Fundamental errors.
Now, what about the Prime Minister? The drums are beating.
The drums are certainly beating. I didn't think there would. I said, well, ratings have to improve above 30. But I don't think she's going to get long to do it. When you read the scribes who I respect, people who know a lot about politics in the media, they're saying, well, you reckon it could even happen before the Queensland election?
Well, the Queensland election is on March 23rd or 4th, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah,
24th, yeah, 24th is the Saturday. Now, the feeling is that Kevin Rudd wouldn't move before that, because theoretically he'll be busy campaigning up in Queensland for another hopeless case, that of Anna Bligh.
Yeah.
But then other people say, well, it's not like Kevin Rudd can't do 2 things at once. He's trying to do 10 things at once, not all of them successfully, it must be said. But if he's got the numbers... Well, what was amazing the other day was that Simon Crean came out on the radio, again,
very strongly,
and said Kevin Rudd will never be leader again. He has to accept that. And then he called him a prima donna. Now, The mere fact that Simon Crean felt necessary to come out and say those sorts of
means
things
that the
something's
drums are
happening.
beating.
Yeah,
And
Crean is a big Gillard supporter, but there's
yes,
plenty of people who aren't. Bill Shorten, of course, is lurking
as
about.
I've explained on this show, if the Labor Party's only got 30% of the votes, that means a lot of the sitting members are going to lose their seats.
Yes.
Now, 2 months ago, about then, they showed that Rudd would have 46% if he became Prime Minister.
Yes.
Still not enough to win, but all those members who are going to lose their seats under Gillard, they don't want to lose their seats. So I'm certain now, it looks absolutely certain that there'll be a go at Gillard, and they won't have a go at her unless they're going to topple her.
No,
They won't have a failed one. They'll have the numbers if they go.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see if you like observing such things.
Now, what about the chief executive of Toyota? He's very unhappy. He says Australians workers are lazy.
Well, that probably won't come as a great revelation to many people, but as we know, we've spoken before, the car industry is under enormous pressure here in Australia. The dollar at the moment is over 107 US cents. That makes the export programs that Holden and Toyota have very uncompetitive. And it appears that what happened just a couple of weeks ago, the day after Australia Day, a week ago, it was the Friday. Australia Day was on the Thursday. The Thursday is, of course, a public holiday. And apparently 30% of Toyota's Australian workforce took the next day off as a sickie. Now, we would say, well, that's a great Australian tradition, you know.
I've never said that as an employer. It's a disgrace.
Well, I remember Bob Hawke after the America's Cup sort of implied it was okay to take a day off on such days. But anyway, the point being is that, on one hand, here we are saying we've got to have a car industry, and we make fantastic cars in Australia and it's worth hanging on to. On the other hand, one of the big three manufacturers sees 30% of their workforce take a sickie on the same day and calls them lazy, and I think rightfully so.
So do I. No,
do you think Australian workers are lazy?
Well, I think a lot of them work harder, but they need supervision. I think that's the problem. The people in the lower jobs, I think they're a lot better than they were. I mean, you used to see council workers, they used to all lean on their shovels because nobody was supervising them. Now a lot of that work is actually contracted out, and the people working there get the jobs done quickly.
Yeah, one of the great reforms of the Australian economy is that many people are now self-employed. Instead of working for a council, they say, I'm in charge of Jim's mowing franchise, and I'll clear all these weeds by the side of the road, and you get paid a fixed price, and it pays you to do it as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
So things have changed, but anyway, I mean, Toyota needs incentives to stay in Australia, and apparently lazy workforce is not one of them. Also, on financial matters, if you can call that one financial, the Reserve Bank meets on Tuesday. They haven't met for 2 months. They always have January off again, like most Australians do. I don't know if that means the Reserve Bank board is also lazy, but anyway, do you think
there'd be nobody to listen to their forecasts of what they're going to say in January. You can't find anybody around.
I would.
Interest rates will go down next week, mark my words, 0.25%.
Okay, but the big issue is, that's the Reserve Bank's rate's a theoretical concept. Will the big banks...
It's not theoretical, it's the bank. It's the rate at which the banks can borrow from the Reserve.
Well, actually, no, it's the rate at which the banks deposit money with the Reserve. This is an important distinction. If the banks could borrow money at will from the Reserve Bank, they would. The big issue is, will the big banks pass it on? I say they won't. I reckon we'll be lucky. I agree with you, we'll get a 25 basis point cut from the Reserve. I think at the retail end, that is what you and I and everybody else might pay on a mortgage, 15 basis points at the most.
That's interesting, because they are suffering from shortage of funds offshore.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
And the banks are sacking people too, so they won't be passing it on. They'll pass on some of it, but not all of it, and then you'll hear Wayne Swan et al. Criticising them for it. They'll whinge a lot.
Now, the last point, I just want to go back to the politics, and then we'll finish up, Tom, but I saw in one of the papers that if Rudd became Prime Minister, they're saying he'd call an election immediately. I find this astonishing. I think he'd want time to try and build his position again.
Well, maybe, but then again, the honeymoon period might be the time to do it. Look, let's just see if he makes that challenge. I mean, he may or may not have the numbers, but the next few weeks, next 2 months, will be a very, very interesting time in Australian politics.
Yep, and the Liberal National Party will win the Queensland election. See you all next week. Thanks for watching.